Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 257 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on April 29th, 2025. How are all you wonderful folks doing? Yeah, everyone's staying dry? Man, rain's jumping out from nowhere lately. It's like every day it's kind of a threat. No, we need it, but heck, man, it's actually crazy. So I hope you guys are able to go out and do some shooting. Things are busy on this end, and we are trucking. Quick podcast for you today. The topic is the Otter Creek Labs Infiniti, this time with subsonic 300 Blackout. Yeah, so you've seen 5 other Infiniti tests published as part of this research program, and this 300 Blackout test report rounds out the current program with 6 total evaluations. Yeah, so how does a hybrid design silencer that you've seen excel with high pressure 5.56 do with a pistol cartridge, essentially, right? How does the lower pressure and lower duration of subsonic 300 Blackout behave with the Infiniti? That's the question that we are going to answer today. Like, what can you expect from this combo? Yeah, so if you're wondering what would happen if you put the Infiniti on a 300 Blackout subsonic platform, this report may be for you. So we'll do the introduction to it today, and then next week we'll do a technical deep dive and get into the nitty-gritty per typical. So today will be broad strokes, which I hope will help a lot of people, okay? Just so you know, there is some construction going on outside today, so if you hear some noises, I apologize for that. Nothing we can do. Just try to ignore them, okay? On with the show. So if you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new to the podcast, welcome, and we're glad to have you. All right, there are timestamps in the episode description for you to skip wherever you would like, but if you want to hang around with me a little longer, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the parties who make this show possible. As always, this podcast is sponsored by Legion Athletics. Nothing you do, exercise, sports, really anything is worth doing without consistency. And you have to do things all the time if you want to really excel at them. And Legion Athletics can help you with that. They have whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout. Do they have everything you need? They don't, but they do have a lot of it. A lot of stuff I use personally would be the vitamin supplements, creatine monohydrate, of course. It's the most studied sports supplement we have, known to man, really. Whey protein, things like that. Visit legionathletics.com. There's a link in the show notes, code word PewScience to save 20% off of your first order. Also, we are sponsored by Silencer Shop, the largest distributor of silencers in the known universe. If you are a new dealer looking to get started in this space and you want to maintain low overhead, Silencer Shop might be able to help you out, okay? Using their kiosk, your customers do their fingerprints and photos electronically, and in turn, you cut down on errors, you simplify your silencer purchasing process, you get a money-back guarantee. It's pretty good. No transfer fees, no paperwork errors, just you and your silencer with no drama. It's really a silencer ownership simplified. We're also sponsored by Top Gun Range Houston. If you're in the Houston area, even if you're just passing through on business, it is worth going to check them out. 15-lane indoor shooting range, the largest firearm rental fleet in the entire state of Texas, and you also can rent machine guns and silencers. And the silencer rental thing is pretty awesome. It's very rare that you're able to do something like that, so I encourage you to try it. Check them out at topgunrange.com to look at their inventory, and also hit them up on Instagram at topgunrange. We are also sponsored by Capital Armory. You know, it's no secret that silencers are in high demand. ATF approval times are screaming fast. So when you combine those two things, it can be hard to find stuff. Capital Armory is another option for you. They have a unique twist. Not only do they have a large selection of silencers, you can order them from your living room and then have them shipped directly to that same living room. That's right. If you live in one of the 42 states where silencers are legal, you can order a silencer, have it shipped directly to your door from Capital Armory. Excuse me. And this podcast is most importantly sponsored by the PewScience Laboratory. I'm the technical director of the lab, and in the interest of public education, we sponsor this podcast and run a public research effort with the goal of pushing the silencer industry forward one test at a time. Visit pewscience.com for the suppression rating. It's the simplest and most accurate hearing safe rating for your suppressed small arms. It's based on true human inner ear response of the entire gunshot from before combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone. That's right. It's the home of the silencer sound standard. 7 sections. the most in-depth and accurate silencer data and analysis in the world. And it's all available to the public 24/7 at pewscience.com. And you can support this podcast yourself. You can support Pew Science, all the public testing we do, by joining with a membership at pewscience.com. That would very much help us. We would appreciate that. And if you just like the one-time stuff, you can also do the donate thing. That's cool. The review page or podcast page, every little bit helps. And you know what? If you don't want to spend any money at all and you're just perusing, that's totally fine. We ask that you give this podcast a great 5-star rating on the iTunes, the Spotify, the YouTubes, the Facebooks. Just let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. We can help normalize the use of suppressed small arms. Okay? Okay, so just a single topic for you today. This is going to be quick. Let's move into the Otter Creek Labs introductory discussion at a time of 5 minutes and 49 seconds. Okay, one moment, please. Okay, and this will be a high-level overview for you folks for the article that's published today with this episode. So this is Sound Signature Review 6-185, the Otter Creek Labs Infiniti with subsonic 300 Blackout. This is the Q Mini Fix. Yeah, it's an 8-inch barrel proving ground. We've used that from the beginning for our 300 Blackout testing. So now we're asking ourselves, well, how does the versatile Infiniti handle subsonic ammunition combustion out of a relatively short barrel? How does the performance compare with some older designs? And also, how does it compare with some purpose-built 300 Blackout designs? Can it hang? Okay, so again, introductory discussion for the technical paper published today. And I was thinking about this. I was sitting down and I was like, boy, howdy, did you ever think a company with a name like Otter Creek Labs would be so popular in the silencer space? And, before I sat down to record this, I took a look in the rankings section of the Silencer Sound Standard, and I wanted to see when we first published Otter Creek Labs data and analysis. And it looks like the first publication for that was on August 5th of 2021. And that was their PR30L and the PR30S. Yeah, so those models are now discontinued, but they're pretty good rifle silencers, actually. Now, counting the Infiniti 300 Blackout subsonic technical report that's being published today, there are 17 Otter Creek Labs data points in the pedigree, and that's pretty good, I think. We published the first polonium report on May 19th of 2022. I think it really took off after that. So Otter Creek Labs has trusted us to do this for quite a while, which is really neat. I think that's really cool. So if you look at the rankings table, and if you just filter by Otter Creek Labs in the filter menu there at the top, and for those of you who don't know, you can go to pewscience.com/rankings. It's available public 24/7 right there. You don't have to be a member. pewscience.com/rankings to get to the table I'm talking about. If you go there, filter by Otter Creek Labs in the manufacturer filter menu, and you leave all the other stuff alone, you're going to see quite the color spectrum on the suppression ratings, right? Because the chart is now color coded. So, and that's really cool. There's quite the spectrum. And when you're just looking at one manufacturer, interesting. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that we have characterized Otter Creek Labs silencers in all kinds of different combustion regimes. We've characterized their performance in a bunch. So let's talk about it, right? We've looked at them on supersonic 308. So when you look at the collective there in the rankings with just Otter Creek Labs silencers selected, on supersonic 308, you see there's some yellows and some oranges, right? High 40 zone, maybe almost the 50 zone, all the way down to the 20 zone. Depending on if you're looking at muzzle risk or shooter's ear risk, and which silencers from Otter Creek Labs you're looking at. So quite the spectrum there on 308 supersonic, right? And so we've also done supersonic 5.56, and you see some oranges and maybe some reds or pinks there, right on the scale. Why? Well, it turns out that's semi-auto. And semi-auto 5.56 can have some gnarly ejection port blast. So you're seeing stuff down below the 20 zone in some cases, aren't you? Yeah, so that's interesting. But also, you're seeing some things in the 40 zone at the muzzle, like with the Infiniti for example, like on 556. So that's great information, which is cool, right? So we've done supersonic 308, supersonic 556. Okay, we've also done subsonic 9mm with Otter Creek Labs, and you're actually, if you look at that, you're at what are you seeing there? You're seeing some light green in the muzzle suppression rating, getting into the mid 50 zone there on the MP5, which is a big deal, and you see the orange there at the ear, again highlighting risk differential of the pressure field. Very important, right? Sometimes different weapon systems have very different muzzle in shooter's ear. You understand that due to different risk of the pressure field, right? Okay, that's highlighting that. Okay, what else have we done with Otter Creek Labs? Well, we've done subsonic 22 with Otter Creek Labs. That's right, and you see all green there, don't you? Different shades of green. That's right, dark green on the bolt action 22 with subsonic ammo, as you would expect, and then you get a little lighter green at the ear on a semi-auto subcompact 22 pistol with the Otter Creek's the titanium. They call that the Otter Creek Labs titanium. That's the model name of their 22 silencer. So you get a little lighter green on the semi-automatic subcompact 22 pistol with subsonic ammo, don't you? You get down into that 70 zone, which is still very, very good for a 22 silencer on that type of weapon, but it does drop there. You see that. So what else? What else have we done? Well, now we've actually done 300 Blackout subsonic before, haven't we? Before today? Yes, we have. And you see some green there in the table, that hydrogen L. Hydrogen L, remember? Hydrogen L had some yellow and orange on 308, but you move out of the high 50s at the ear up to the high 60s at the ear when you get to subsonic 300 Blackout with that same silencer, and then the color changes to light green. Okay, why? Why is there you're moving from yellow and orange than to light green? Why? Well, there's less personnel risk, right? It's all keyed to the dose chart on the website, the suppression rating dose chart. So the hydrogen L, like several other silencers, can be used on different weapon systems with different ammunition. So accordingly, it has different suppression ratings at the muzzle and at the ear on different platforms. Okay, does that help you understand? So in this chart, so you look at these, you remember, I selected only Otter Creek Labs as a manufacturer in the chart. So in those previous 16 data points, just from that manufacturer, you saw pretty much the entire spectrum of personnel risk from their products, didn't you? The entire spectrum of personnel risk just from one manufacturer. I think that the lowest rating is 19.7 at the shooter's ear. What is that? Polonium on the Mark 18. Everyone knows super high back pressure polonium, super high risk to the operator on the Mark 18 compared to some other silencers, right? Okay, that's the lowest for Otter Creek Labs in the published data so far. Okay, and what's the highest? Highest, 89.3 for Otter Creek Labs for their 22 silencer, the titanium, and that's on the bolt action rifle with subsonic ammunition at the muzzle. 1 meter left of the end cap. Okay, so you from 19.7 to 89.3. That's a huge spectrum of risk. And the suppression rating scale is designed to capture that entire spectrum with resolution that you can understand, right? So Otter Creek Labs is an excellent case study, right? It's only one manufacturer, but it's hitting the whole spectrum. Okay? So I say all of this to say, it does not matter who you are, what your company is named, what your silencers are called, what color they are, or if you're a Pew Science client. If your data and analysis is in our public database, it is on a level playing field, okay? Even the long-time clients like Otter Creek Labs have a spectrum of performance results, okay? I think the colors really help highlight that clearly, visually. Okay, so we're in the business of researching small arm combustion propagation and personnel risk. Full stop. That's what we do. That's the point of Pew Science, okay? And there's a lot of people listening to this because the Infiniti is popular and Otter Creek Labs is getting more popular now. So I wanted to make sure you all understand what's going on. Excuse me. So the Infiniti, it now makes 17 data points in the chart for Otter Creek Labs. Yes? And on 300 Blackout. Now, this report published today is the second data point using the solid 762 end cap with the Infiniti. Because what did you see first? Well, you saw the 308 bolt action test with a solid 762 end cap, okay? So this is now the subsonic 300 Blackout bolt action test with the 762 solid end cap, okay? So where does the suppression rating fall at the muzzle and at the shooter's ear with the solid 762 end cap Infiniti on subsonic 300 Blackout from an 8-inch bolt action Q mini fix? Okay, now you're probably gonna be a little more yellow than you are green on the spectrum. Maybe you're getting into the light green at muzzle and ear. Okay, so if you're looking at the rankings table, does that make sense? Why that would be? If you're looking at the suppression rating chart, does that make sense? Why would that be? Does that make sense to you? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I want to talk about in these terms right now in this intro talk before the technical talk next week, because I want to illustrate to you that the suppression ratings are not about how cool the silencer looks, or if we like the silencer, or if the silencer is good, or if the silencer is bad. They're purely risk metrics. Okay, so I did another, and I was looking at this before we started recording. So I did another thing. Another thing I did, I cleared that filter on the table, on the ranking section. And you can do this with a public ranking section if you like. I cleared the filter on the table, and then I selected only 300 Blackout subsonic in the ammunition dropdown, and I left everything else default. So now what does that give you? Well, now it gives you 23 data points in the table, plus now with the Infiniti, which will be in the public table 0700 on April 30th, tomorrow for me, today for you. So it'll be 23 plus 1 with the Infiniti 300 Blackout. It'll be 24. So there'll be 24 data points in the table. No matter how you sort it, you will see that again. There is quite an array of colors shown in the suppression rating columns, right? So again, you see everything from pink all the way to green. So what's our spread here in this data set now? So remember, just a second ago, we were only looking at Otter Creek Lab silencers, but we were looking at literally all of the host weapons and ammo types they've been tested on, from 22 subsonic to 308 supers. And what do we get? We had a range from 19.7 at the ear all the way to 89.3 at the muzzle, right? Which was a big spread. Okay, so what about now? So now we're focused only on subsonic 300 Blackout out of a bolt action rifle with an 8-inch barrel. So now, do you want to predict what the low and high numbers are from the spread from all the silencers tested there? Because remember, this now it's not just about Otter Creek. Now this is all these 24 data points from a bunch of different manufacturers. So before I tell you the spread, if you don't have the website in front of you, before I tell you the spread, let's predict with logic. Okay? Before I tell you the spread, what do you know about the host platform? What do you already know? Well, you know it's a bolt action, right? So one primary source of blast overpressure, only one primary source of blast overpressure, the muzzle. Okay? So probably we will see some lower muzzle suppression ratings than we will shooter's ear suppression ratings, right? The muzzle suppression ratings will probably, on average, be lower than the shooter's ear suppression ratings, but maybe not always. Many times, yes, but not always. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry for that background noise. Again, there is construction going on. I don't know how well you can hear that in the recording. And so what else do we know about the host platform? Subsonic 300 Blackout, right? Okay, so muzzle blast is going to be of lower severity than with supersonic ammunition. You know that. So the suppression ratings may trend higher, right? Sometimes, but not always. Okay, so because also in addition to the muzzle blast being less severe, there's now there's no supersonic flight of the bullet, so you won't get that Mach wave action in there from the bullet. But remember, again, the muzzle blast is always the biggest threat to you anyway. There's still supersonic gases, of course, just not a supersonic projectile. Okay, Roger that. You understand that, but that's informing our hypothesis. Now, what else? What else do we know about the host platform now that we've sorted by 300 Blackout with the bolt action there? What else? Well, it's an 8-inch barrel. Yeah, so it's not a 16-inch barrel. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that we're dealing with a barrel length that is half the length of what folks typically think of when they think of a rifle, commonly, right? Now, is that important for the suppression rating? Well, yes. And why? Why would that be? Well, the muzzle blast is more intense on short barrels, correct? So even when the barrels are shooting subsonic ammunition, right? Also, what else changes with a short barrel? Well, first round pop is harder to control. Why would that be? Well, we spoke about that on the last episode on listener questions, didn't we? When we talked about powder burn rates and things like that, do you remember? Yeah, go back and listen. So what do you think is going to happen here? Well, you might get a range of performance, wouldn't you, from all of these silencers on 300 Blackout. Across all of these silencers, you would probably have a range of performance. And you would be right if you guessed that. Okay, so you see, even before looking at the actual silencers, you know somewhat what to expect for the colors on the chart because you have isolated host weapon and ammunition. Okay, you know you're going to see a lot of green because subsonic 300 Blackout is supposed to be quiet out of a bolt gun with a lot of silencers, right? Right. But you also know that the barrel is short, and you also know that a lot of silencer companies say things that aren't validated by any type of third-party data or analysis, so you're going to get some yellow and pink too, aren't you? Aren't you? Yes. Okay, so what's in the table? Well, as you might have figured, our suppression rating gets all the way down to 28.2 at the muzzle on this host. Yeah, all the way down. That can happen if the silencer isn't designed for this combustion regime. So what's the highest suppression rating in the group? Well, it looks like it's 71.4 at the shooter's ear. Wow, okay. So across both muzzle and ear suppression ratings, across 24 data points from all these different companies, we have a spread between 28.2 and 71.4. Okay, that is orangish pink all the way to light green on the suppression rating chart. Wow. That is quite the spread. Okay, so where does the Infiniti with its solid end cap stack up? Well, it's definitely toward the top half of the group. It is. Now, is that expected? Well, I mean, by this point, if you've been following the research, I would say it absolutely is expected. Excuse me. The silencer is flexible and adaptable to use multiple end caps, both solid and vented, and both 5.56 and 7.62. And you saw its performance on Supersonic 5.56 with both solid and vented end caps, and you saw its performance on Supersonic 308 with both solid and vented end caps. So you have a good feel for how the Infiniti performs. You have a good feel for Infiniti performance, one, with intermediate rifle cartridges at high pressure combustion, and two, with full rifle cartridges with high volume combustion. Okay, so if you slap a solid end cap on this Infiniti to shoot a subsonic 30 caliber cartridge through it, you know the job it has to do. You understand the task. It has to be able to throttle flow enough to suppress shorter duration, lower pressure combustion, but it also has to deal with a relatively short barrel. Okay, so you can imagine you may see some things we see with silencers that have a little bit of a higher flow rate on shorter systems, and also those that are designed for high pressure. You may get some more severe first round pop, or we call FRP. You may get some more severe FRP than some other silencers, and you also might have suppression rating metrics that are decent but not world beating. Okay? And I think that's what you're going to see here. I think that's how you're going to qualitatively look at this. When you look at the quantitative metrics, the Infiniti is a flexible, adaptable hybrid. And it has extreme durability, no question. You can put it on most rifles and perform pretty well. Is it a 300 Blackout subsonic specialist? No, it is not by any stretch of the imagination. Does it do pretty good? I think it does. Does it beat several silencers that were actually sold as doing well on 300 Blackout? Yes. Now, is that an artifact of pre-Pew Science industry tomfoolery? I mean, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, everyone has their opinion on that, right? Excuse me. Everyone has their own opinion on that, which is fine. You're always entitled to your opinion. So the Infiniti, it is hub capable, as many of you folks remember. It is 100% Inconel. It has changeable end caps that are stainless steel. It has a functional outer surface texture to get a good grip on it. It's heavy, but it's also built to be put on whatever machine gun you want, so pick your poison. So, I mean, the Infiniti has some really cool traits, some really cool features, and it can do a lot. So if you are, in fact, looking to use it on subsonic 300 Blackout because it's one of your only silencers, for example, I think you might be pleasantly surprised using it. I think this article will give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you can go from there, okay? Read it and see what you think and make your own decisions. At the very least, you're going to know, like after you've read all this, you're going to know what your personnel hazards are with this silencer compared to others in the data set. And I think with 24 total data points right now in the 300 Blackout subsonic rankings on that mini fix, you have a lot of technology peg points. I really think you do. You know what the really quiet silencers do, and you know what crazy loud silencers do. And I'm not going to name any names. You can go look at the subsonic 300 Blackout rankings yourself. Because you can't fool testing and analysis. It is what it is. So this is very objective. You could, if you wanted to, you could print out the rankings. You could cover the brand names and the names of the silencers, look at the metrics, see something you like, and then go and then uncover them and see. I mean, whatever you need to do psychologically to cope with this, it's up to you. We are just an independent lab. We just publish data and analysis. It is up to you what to buy or not buy. We don't care. Okay. I think this is a good intro. I think this has been a good intro. I think I hope this is topical for all of you to understand big picture, 10,000 foot view. I hope it gives you a lot of context to think about when you're reading the report. And in the report, I try to put some specific context with regard to comparisons to competing models, and even comparisons to some famous silencers that were supposed to be for 300 Blackout, like the Q-Half Nelson, right? Which is the sister silencer to the Trash Panda. Okay, so go check it out. Look at things like overall suppression, consistency, first round pop. Look what the rest of the playing field is doing. Okay, be honest with yourself, honest with your peers, honest with your homies and the silencer companies. Okay, I think this is one more brick in the wall, one more data point to show us that yes, we are collectively figuring all of this out. We are. Okay, so big thanks to Otter Creek Labs, as always, for trusting us to perform this work. Big ups. One of our longest standing laboratory clients have basically entrusted us to perform independent third-party lab testing of their entire catalog, and that's a big deal. Like and you saw it. And you know what? You can love or hate Otter Creek Labs. You can love or hate Pew Science, but I spoke through the logic here, and if you go to our rankings, you see that Otter Creek Lab silencers fall in the spectrum of suppression ratings from low to high across weapons, just like any other company would. So I really want to hammer home the point that it doesn't matter who you are, guys. This is a level playing field, okay? Different silencers perform differently on different hosts with different ammunition, and them's the breaks. There's no one company on this earth making a silencer that beats every other silencer in every category. It's impossible. Okay? There's going to be compromises, and some folks are going to be do better jobs than others, and it's not just one company. There's a bunch of them. Okay? And the sooner everyone understands that, the sooner folks will be less emotionally upset. And I do personally hope for all of you that you won't be emotionally upset about inanimate objects. Okay? What you should be is excited that we get to characterize the performance of silencers, because what's the most important thing? To spread and normalize the use of suppressed small arms, as I tell you every single episode at the end of the ad read. That's right. The most important thing is to spread the knowledge of suppressed small arms. And we're doing it. And we're pushing the industry forward one test at a time. Okay. Big ups, Andrew. Good job. The entire Otter Creek Labs team, thank you for trusting us. We're going to hit the technical discussion of the report on the next episode. We'll do that deep dive. So please let it marinate. Let it settle. We'll go through all the details together. Okay. Please stay safe out there. Have fun. Stay dry. There's a lot of rain from April showers. I will talk with you folks again soon. Okay, bye.